Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Andrea, and I am pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl Fair. And now here's Reverend Cheryl.
Thank you, Andrea, and welcome, everyone. Everyone who's here in the Zoom room with me right now, and all of you who might be watching on YouTube or watching at a later time. I appreciate you showing up and bringing the energy of your attention to this community that is Unity of Fredericksburg. Our broadcast date today is Sunday, February the 1st. So since it's the first day of February, I thought we would look at the meaning of February from the Spiritual Passages website. So February comes from the Latin word februa. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it means to cleanse. Interesting. So metaphysically speaking, the month of February stands for purification, refining and purging ourselves of negativity, to think about possibilities. So here's a quote from Albert Camus. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. So here in Central Virginia, we have been experiencing some winter. So there's some encouragement for you to find within you that invincible summer. And here's one more quote for us on this wintry February morning from Barbara Winkler. Every gardener knows that under the cloak of winter lies a miracle, a seed waiting to sprout, a bulb opening to the light, a bud straining to unfurl, and the anticipation nurtures our dreams. So when you have those moments of feeling chilly, then why don't you lean into that anticipation, because it won't be too many weeks before it'll be springtime, right? So um, we have a new annual theme for 2026 here at Unity of Fredericksburg, and it's a series of 3 phrases, and each month we'll kind of be leaning into one of those phrases. So now that we're in February, we're leaning into the second phrase of our annual theme, which is that we are intentional in action. Now, being intentional is all about putting feet to our faith, choosing our thoughts and words with intention, aligning our choices and actions with our beliefs, affirming our beliefs with regular spiritual practice so that we can become love in action. So, today, there are so many ways that we can do that. And throughout the year, we will be looking into different ways. Today, we're focusing on walking with intention. And we have some powerful examples of walking with intention happening right now with the Walk for Peace, which is working its way through the state of Virginia as we speak. The Walk for Peace is a 120-day, 2,300-mile walking journey by a group of Buddhist monks with their loyal dog named Aloka. They have been walking from Fort Worth, Texas, and their goal is to arrive in Washington, D.C. And they're doing this to raise awareness of inner peace and mindfulness across America and the world. So they have on social media more than 2 million followers on Facebook, and their Facebook page, which is called Walk for Peace, that's the primary place to find all of the updates on what they're doing every day. Crowds are showing up no matter what the weather. We've had some pretty extreme winter weather in Virginia, and people have been showing up every day. And when they make stops, when they're able to have folks there, they do something called peace sharing talks when they stop to rest. And if you watch their social media on that Facebook page, Walk for Peace, it is filled with affirmations and in unity, what we would call it, truth talks and inspiration. Here's a short little one, and then we will hear some more of them around our meditation later. Here's a short one where they're saying, have a peaceful day. May we be mindful in everything we do throughout the day. We invite you to walk with us in spirit. May you and all beings be well, happy, and at peace. So, the spiritual practice they are modeling for us is simple: walking. Walking with intention. And walking has been a form of spiritual activism for eons. So I'm going to be using that phrase a lot today, spiritual activism. So let's take a moment to kind of define that. I did work with AI Copilot to kind of, put together a definition we can use. So here we go. Let's give this a try. Spiritual activism is the fusion of inner spiritual practice with outer action. It's fired by the belief that meaningful change in the world will arise from compassion, consciousness, and inner transformation. So, that's kind of a definition of spiritual activism. And we're going to look at a few examples today. So, one of the most enduring examples of walking as spiritual activism comes from the Bible, from the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth. So unity was originally founded on the teachings and the example of Jesus. So we do love to talk about our Jesus every now and then here at Unity. So here are just a few examples of how walking was a part of Jesus's ministry. So early on, when he was in discernment, he walked by the sea in discernment before calling his disciples. And this for us on the personal level is when we are in discernment around something going on in our lives, and then we name and claim and call our divine powers to kind of suit up to step into whatever we need to do. So there's Jesus showing us walking as discernment in motion. There's also so many examples of walking as love in action, because Jesus and his disciples, they walked so many miles every day. And in the Bible, you just see it as a little phrase. Well, they walked from here to there. Well, it would be miles and miles and miles of walking and talking and spreading their word of love. So walking as love in action. And we also see multiple examples of walking as healing and transformation, because one specific example is when Jesus invites a person to take up his mat and walk. So take up your mat and walk. So all of these examples. So take a breath with me right now and let's just kind of resonate with all of those examples of walking as spiritual activism. Imagine yourself walking, whether that's easy for you or challenging for you. You can, in your imagination, be walking. And let's affirm together. I'll give you an affirmation. You can repeat it with me. I am the presence in motion with every step. Say it with me. I am the presence in motion with every step. Nice. All right, we're going to come forward in time a little bit to the early part of the 20th century for our next example of walking with intention. As I mentioned last week, we are in the midst of the season for nonviolence, which takes place from January 30th to April the 4th. And for those of you who might not be aware, just want to point out that the Season for Nonviolence is a global grassroots campaign dedicated to raising awareness about the transformative power of nonviolence. And it was established by Arun Gandhi as a yearly event celebrating the philosophies and lives of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Now, the last couple of weeks we've talked about Martin Luther King Jr., so today I'm going to highlight a little bit about Mahatma Gandhi, who brought the practice of walking to bear in powerful ways as the leader of the Indian independence movement from British rule in the early 20th century. Now, Gandhi, talk about walking a lot. He walked a lot. He averaged about, according to the sources that I found, around 11 miles per day for nearly 40 years in his work as a spiritual activist. So one of the things that he would do is he would not travel in, and even though he was a leader and he refused to take any kind of fancy rides. He would not be in luxury train cars. He would be in the back where all the people didn't have seats and were crammed in there. That's where he would ride. His preference would be to walk on foot so that he could talk and connect and create bonds as he was walking. And most notably, in 1930, Gandhi led followers on a 24-day walk across India to the sea as a nonviolent protest of British tax and monopoly on the sales of salt. So this was known as the Salt March of 1930, an intentional walk that was a key step in the Indian independence movement. Talk about walking with intention, right? So here's a quote from Mahatma Gandhi that we can take to heart in this day and age. A small body of determined spirits fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission can alter the course of history. Yes, feel that right here, right now. Take a breath. And just imagine yourself putting the power of your convictions into every step you take. And here's an affirmation that you can use. Guided by faith and divine order, I walk with power and strength. I'll say it again so you can say it with me. Guided by faith and divine order, I walk with power and strength. Yes, indeed. All right. Since February is Black History Month, I do want to point out that later in the 20th century, after the time of Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. modeled many of the things, nonviolent protests that he organized on Gandhi's example, and he and other leaders that was a part of the American Civil Rights Movement used walking with intention. In particular, we want to note the March on Washington in 1963, the March from Selma to Montgomery in Alabama in 1965. The list goes on and on. And walking continues to be a powerful form of spiritual activism today. We know that, we see that. Now, I do want to take a little side path right now for those of you who are particularly interested in this topic of spiritual activism. I want to give you a couple of resources to look into. And for those of you in the Zoom room. Later on, I'll share the links there for you. But right now, I just want to mention, if you are interested in spiritual activism, please look into the work of a man named Andrew Harvey. Andrew Harvey, he's the founder and director of the Institute for Sacred Activism. And you can find that at andrewharvey.net. andrewharvey.net. Here's a quote from his site about his work. The vision of sacred activism is dedicated to honoring and continuing the tremendous work of extraordinary people such as Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, the Dalai Lama, Nelson Mandela, Rosa Parks, and Desmond Tutu. They also seem to have training available, so if that's something you're interested in, andrewharvey.net. Another resource that I found is a woman named Beth Hedquist, who is a path work practitioner. So, path work is a particular spiritual path that's very interesting. You can find her website at sacreddiscoveriespathwork.com. So she has a blog post there called Birthing a New Consciousness, a Pathwork Exploration of Sacred Activism. And here's a quote from Beth Hedquist. I believe the challenges that we face in the US and the world today have a spiritual significance. I believe the old way is dying because it no longer works, and something new is trying to be born. So that's a wonderful resource. I'm going to give you one more before I move on with my talk. And that is for those of us who are in Virginia. I direct your attention to the Virginia Interfaith Center. And their website is virginiainterfaithcenter.org. So they bring together people of all faiths. And this, of course, is, across the whole Commonwealth of Virginia to advocate for justice, equity, and the common good across the Commonwealth. Their particular focuses are healthy communities, economic justice, criminal justice reform, affordable housing, and civic engagement. They have a newsletter that comes out that provides all kinds of helpful tools for communicating with your elected representatives and what they call toolkits for if you want to become involved, how to become involved. They were very engaged in a recent effort in Hanover County to block the sale of a large industrial space for the use of becoming an immigrant detention center. And that was successful. That effort was blocked, and that's not going to happen. So, Virginia Interfaith Center. All right. So that's for all of you who are particularly interested in this topic of spiritual activism, resources, so that you can find ways to kind of move into activism if that's what you want to do. Now, some of us are called in that way, and some of us are called to walk our truth in different ways, but each one of us can be spiritual activists at the level of our own consciousness. And that really is the lane where we are here at Unity of Fredericksburg, is we're all about spiritual enlightenment and transformation. That is our mission. And so that's why we always come back to the spiritual approach. So one thing we need to realize in consciousness is that no change will take place in the outer world until a shift happens at the level of human consciousness. And the more that we individually affirm that which we want to see in the world, then those ripples will come about. So here's a quote about that from Albert Einstein. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. So it is important for each and every one of us, when we see things in the world that we're unhappy with, to focus on our own spiritual practice first every day. Here's another quote from Unity minister and teacher, the late wonderful Paul Hasselbeck, from his book, Use the Truth You Know. This is a short little quote. Whatever we see in the outer realm is based on something in the inner realm of consciousness. And we can all work on affecting that change. So when you find yourself asking, looking out at the world or looking at your life and asking, what is mine to do? Start at the level of your own consciousness. So the appearance of division, polarity in the outer world is an expression of a persistent human belief in separation and dualism, which is why in unity we continually focus on oneness, because that's where we can work our way out of these kind of opposing forces that we perceive in the outer world. And at the end of our Zoom time together here at Unity of Fredericksburg, we continue to sing together, Let There Be Peace on Earth. And you might notice that as we finish singing that song, generally I kind of come in with an affirmation of saying, yes, indeed, because we're saying, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me at the level of my consciousness, that I am looking out at the world and all the things I'm seeing. I am affirming peace. I am affirming oneness, not getting into all the stories about division. And it's so important for us to keep doing our spiritual healing and work through our practice, because only in the silence will you create the space to find that answer to the question, what is mine to do? You don't find it on the news. You don't find it on social media. You don't find it as a result of doing research or overthinking. You only find those answers in the stillness, of having a spiritual practice. And we have, let me come circle back to our friends, the monks, and their walk for peace. What a wonderful reminder now with these monks walking through Virginia today, right here and now. Notice what they're doing, friends. They are simply walking. They're showing up. They're staying focused in their spiritual practice. They are not distracted by the news. They are not set aside by the weather, and they've been having some weather or any other perceived obstacles. They're showing up in their practice as a model, as an example for us. And we can feel the ripples of their dedication in our hearts, in our bodies, and in our minds. And their foundational prayer is something we've talked about probably about a year and a half ago. We talked about the loving kindness practice, the Buddhist loving kindness practice. There are lots of different versions. And you can use whatever pronouns that you want, but I'll do it from the first person. May I be well, happy, and peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May I be safe and protected. May I live with ease and joy. So can you say that? Of course you can. You can do that practice, whether you're able to go out and walk today or not. Anytime you find yourself unsettled with the conditions of your life or the things going on in the world, do your practice. When you find yourself anxious or worried, do your spiritual practice. Whatever your state of mind, do your practice, whatever it is. And here's another reminder of this loving kindness practice. May you be well, happy, and peaceful. May you be free from suffering. May you be safe and protected. May you live with ease and joy. So do this practice when you rise and before you rest. Do this practice as you walk and before you speak. Rather than making plans, do your practice. Instead of pointing out things in the world that you feel are wrong, do your practice. Bathe your heart in peace. Immerse your thoughts in peace. All of us are spiritual activists as we mindfully practice. So we're going to move now into our time of meditation. And I'm going to begin our time of meditation with a quote. And I'm have drawn these quotes from the posts on Facebook, the Walk for Peace page. So we'll start with one, we'll have our time in the silence, and then we'll conclude with another one. So here's a quote. So take a breath first. Let's take a breath. All right. And if you wish, you can allow your outer eyes to soften and just listen to these words from the monks and their walk for peace. We walk not to bring you peace, but to remind you it never left. It's been there through every storm, every heartbreak, every lonely night, waiting with infinite patience for you to notice it again. May our footsteps help you to turn inward and find it. And may that discovery be like sunrise after the longest night, dispelling shadows you thought were permanent and filling your whole being with radiant wellness, with comfort, with belonging. May you and all beings be well, happy, and at peace. And with that, let us move into a time in the silence together. As we begin to bring our attention back to the room that we're in, the body in the seat, the breath in the body. Here's another quote from the Walk for Peace. May our footsteps remind you of the light that has always lived within you, the peace that darkness tried to hide but could never extinguish. May that peace rise gently now, like dawn breaking, dispelling every shadow and filling the empty places with warmth, with hope, with the remembrance that you have always been whole. May you and all beings be well, happy, and at peace. So let's close our meditation time with an affirmation taken from that last line there. So here's our affirmation. May all beings be well, happy, and at peace. Say it with me, my friends. May all beings be well, happy, and at peace. Should we do it one more time for good measure? Yes. May all beings be well, happy, and at peace. So thank you so much for being here, my friends. And that is it for me today. And I am going to hand it back to our friend Andrea.
Thank you, Reverend Cheryl. And thank you, viewers, for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation and support our ministry with your financial